Welcome to my channel. I woke up feeling off. Not just the usual grogginess or the ache in my shoulders, but something subtle, pervasive, like the world itself had shifted overnight. I opened my eyes and froze, not knowing what I was expecting. My own reflection? A nightmare? Something else? The first thing I noticed was the weight of my hair. It wasn't mine. It felt soft, impossibly smooth, brushing against my cheeks with a strange familiarity that made my skin tingle. I moved my fingers through it, and the sound, the subtle swish, made my heart skip. Something was very, very wrong. I glanced at the mirror, not really wanting to see. And yet I did. I had to. The face staring back at me was delicate, feminine, beautiful in a way that made my chest tighten. My jawline, my cheekbones, my lips, they weren't mine. Not the ones I had grown accustomed to, the ones I knew like the back of my hand. My eyes. They were bigger, wider, framed with lashes that I had never seen on my own face. They were expressive, almost pleading, almost daring me to accept them. I sank onto the bed, trembling, tracing my reflection with my gaze as if I could memorize it before it vanished. I wanted to scream, to run, to deny it all. But each passing second confirmed the truth. I had changed. I didn't choose this. I couldn't undo it. I was trapped in a body that wasn't my own, yet somehow, disturbingly, it felt alive. I tried to move. My limbs felt unfamiliar, lighter, yet more sensitive. Every motion was deliberate, cautious, as if I had to relearn how to inhabit this skin. I walked to the bathroom, each step a conscious negotiation with gravity, with balance, with the subtle sway that made me feel exposed. I studied my hands. Small, soft, unfamiliar. I flexed my fingers, traced the lines in my palms. How could this be me? How could something so alien feel so undeniably real? I avoided the phone at first. I didn't want to hear my voice. When I finally spoke, calling out to no one in particular, it was melodic. Softer than I had ever known myself to be. It carried a timbre that made me shiver. I stopped mid-sentence, horrified, heart pounding. Who was I now? Food, movement, the simplest daily routines. They became exercises in panic and awe. My pajamas were loose, awkward. The chair at my desk felt taller, my limbs longer, more delicate. Every action demanded my attention, my awareness, my negotiation. Even drinking water was an experiment. By nightfall, I was exhausted, but sleep didn't come. I sat by the window, letting the city lights spill across my reflection, tracing my cheekbones, my lips, my eyes. I felt an impossible mix of fear and fascination. I didn't choose this, yet I couldn't stop examining it, couldn't stop wondering. What does it mean for who I am? I didn't want to accept it. And yet, somewhere deep inside, a tiny voice whispered, maybe this is a chance. Maybe you'll discover something you never knew about yourself. The thought was terrifying. And exhilarating. Monday morning arrived like a storm I couldn't control. I stood in front of the mirror, fully aware that I was about to face the world in a body I didn't recognize, and I could feel my pulse hammering in my throat. I ran my fingers over the soft curve of my jaw, adjusted the skirt that hugged my hips, and took a shaky breath. Stepping outside, I immediately sensed it. The air felt heavier, the streets sharper somehow, the world suddenly observing me in ways it hadn't before. People glanced, lingered, whispered. And every time I met someone's eyes, I felt them searching for the secret I was hiding, and maybe seeing it. At work, it was immediate. I tried to act normal, to slide into the routine I had memorized over years, but the world didn't allow it. "Hey, you okay?" asked Mark from accounting, stopping mid-step in the hallway. His eyes lingered just a second too long, his smile polite but uncertain. "Yeah, fine," I replied, my voice soft, higher than I intended. I cursed myself internally. Why did it have to sound like this? The whispers started almost instantly. I caught fragments of conversations as I walked past the office kitchen. "Did you see her? Is that him? Something's different." Every step I took felt like walking a tightrope. My own movements felt exaggerated, foreign. I crossed my legs differently in the meeting room, adjusted my posture, tried to lower my voice, but it all drew attention. And the more I noticed, the more self-conscious I became. Lunch was worse. I sat alone at first, sipping coffee, listening to the murmur of colleagues around me. The cafeteria felt like a stage. I overheard someone laughing quietly, muttering something under their breath. My chest tightened. I wanted to vanish. Then a familiar face approached, Sarah from HR. "Hey," she said, tilting her head. "I just wanted to check in. You're different. But you look good. Really." The compliment should have eased the tension, but instead, it made me feel exposed. Her gaze was gentle but probing, like she was trying to read my soul. "Thanks," I muttered, fiddling with the edge of my skirt. I could feel my cheeks burning. By afternoon, the tension had become unbearable. Every phone call, every interaction, every glance from a coworker reminded me that my life had shifted in ways I couldn't control. I noticed subtle changes in behavior too. People avoided certain topics, others whispered more loudly when I approached, and a few dared to stare longer than necessary. I was hyper-aware, almost paranoid, of every tiny nuance. At one point, I walked past the copier and caught two colleagues glancing at me and then quickly looking away. Their conversation paused mid-sentence. My stomach churned. Do they suspect? Do they know? Can they tell? When I got home that evening, I collapsed on the couch, exhausted but restless. I replayed every moment, every word, every glance. My reflection in the darkened window caught my eye, and I barely recognized the person staring back. The soft curves of my face, the way my hair framed my features. It all screamed a version of me I wasn't prepared to accept in public. Yet, despite the fear, a strange thrill lingered. People noticed me. They reacted. And somewhere deep inside, I felt a flicker of power. Not control over them, but over myself. The ability to endure, to navigate, to survive in this body that had been thrust upon me. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound, every shadow in my apartment, made me jump. But with the fear came curiosity. What if I leaned into it? What if I explored this identity, even just a little? The thought was dangerous. And it was impossible to ignore. The next morning, I woke with a decision forming in the back of my mind. I had to test this new self. I had to confront the world again, even if it meant fear, embarrassment, or exposure. The whispers, the stares, the subtle judgments, they had become a challenge, a gauntlet I couldn't avoid. And somewhere, beneath the panic, beneath the anxiety, I realized I might not want to. The apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet that made every sound and shadow feel amplified. I closed the door behind me, locking it with a deliberate click that felt like sealing a secret world away from prying eyes. In here, I could be anything. In here, I could explore. I sank onto the couch, fingertips brushing against the soft fabric of my skirt. My reflection caught in the glass of the coffee table, distorted, teasing, unfamiliar. I traced my jawline slowly, as if memorizing a map I had never studied before. The thought struck me, this body, this face, it's mine now. I didn't choose it, but I can inhabit it. I began with my hair. Running my fingers through the silky strands, I marveled at the way they fell effortlessly over my shoulders. The scent was faintly floral, intoxicating, almost unreal. I twisted a strand around my finger, felt its weight, its softness, and allowed myself a small, private smile. There was a power in this intimacy, a thrill in touching something so personal yet so alien. Then came the clothes. I had gathered several outfits during secret trips to stores I had avoided for years, careful not to draw attention. Tonight, I tried them on in solitude. A soft blouse, a flowing skirt, heels that made me wobble in the most deliciously uncomfortable way. I studied every curve, every line, noticing how the fabric hugged my body differently than it ever had before. Each garment revealed a new nuance, a new possibility. Makeup was next. I had watched tutorials in secret, studied techniques with obsessive precision. Foundation, concealer, subtle blush, eyeshadow that emphasized my newfound eye shape. Each stroke of the brush was transformative, almost hypnotic. Mascara lengthened my lashes, eyeliner shaped my eyes, and lipstick, deep rose, gave my lips a new kind of attention. I stared into the mirror for hours, seeing myself evolve with every application. Voice practice followed. Whispering, humming, speaking softly, I explored the cadence, the pitch, the subtle inflections that made the voice sound authentic. I laughed quietly, practiced small gestures, tilts of my head, movements of my hands. Each trial was a discovery, a sensation both thrilling and terrifying. And yet, the most intense moments were the ones without a plan. When I caught a detail in the mirror I hadn't noticed, when I experimented with a pose, a glance, a smile. The reflection stared back, curious, teasing, almost challenging me. "Who are you really?" it seemed to ask. And I realized, I didn't have an answer. Not yet. I spent hours in this private world, shifting between exhilaration and fear. Each small victory, perfect eyeliner, a well-timed gesture, balanced posture, brought a sense of control I hadn't felt since the change. And each failure, tripping in heels, smudging lipstick, voice cracking, taught me patience, self-awareness, and the delicate balance of presence. By the time I finally collapsed onto the couch, exhausted and exhilarated, the reflection in the window was no longer just foreign. It was familiar, intimate, and somehow, inviting. I realized I was beginning to understand, maybe even appreciate, the nuances of this new existence. I didn't choose it, no, but I could explore it, shape it, inhabit it in a way that felt increasingly like me. For the first time since the change, I felt a sense of agency. The world outside might judge, whisper, stare, but in this private space, I was free. Free to experiment, to discover, to embrace the strange, beautiful, terrifying new self that had been forced upon me. And in that freedom, I felt a thrill I hadn't expected. Maybe this change wasn't only loss. Maybe it could be something more. The office felt different that morning. Every glance, every murmur, every subtle shift in tone seemed amplified, charged with anticipation. I could feel the tension like electricity in the air, prickling along my skin. Today, there was no hiding. It began with a meeting. I walked into the conference room, heels clicking against the polished floor, skirt swaying just enough to draw eyes without being overt. My pulse thumped in my ears. My colleagues glanced up from their papers, startled, curious, uncertain. And I knew, with a sinking feeling in my chest, that the secret I had tried to guard so fiercely was on the verge of being exposed. "Good morning," I said, my voice soft but deliberate, higher than before but steady. It carried authority, poise, and the subtle vulnerability I had learned to channel. The whispers started almost immediately. I caught fragments of conversation out of the corner of my eye. Did she change? It's different. I don't even recognize him. Every word was a dagger and a mirror at once. Panic threatened to overtake me, but I focused on my breathing, on the way my posture felt strong, my movements confident. This was a test, and I had no choice but to face it. After the meeting, Sarah from HR approached again, quietly, her expression unreadable. "Can I speak with you?" she asked, motioning toward a side office. I followed, heart hammering, hands trembling slightly. Inside, she leaned against the desk. I want to say, this change, it's a lot. I know it's not yours. But I want you to know, I see you. And I respect you." Her words hit me with the weight of relief, but also of reality. Some people accepted me. Others, I knew, would never understand. The decision was mine: hide, shrink back, or step fully into this new self. The next week was a crucible. Every interaction, every glance, every offhand comment became a challenge. A few colleagues whispered, a few stared, some adjusted to the new me, some avoided eye contact entirely. But through it all, I discovered a strength I hadn't known existed. My confidence grew, not because I was immune to judgment, but because I refused to let it control me. By the end of the week, the tension had shifted. The world hadn't changed, but I had. I moved through spaces with poise, engaged in conversations with assurance, and responded to curiosity with calm, self-assured presence. I had learned that the true transformation wasn't only in my body, it was in my mind, my spirit, my ability to claim authenticity despite fear. One evening, standing in front of the mirror at home, I examined myself fully. The face that had once shocked me now reflected strength, beauty, and ownership. The hair, the curves, the subtle sway of my stance, they were mine now, not imposed upon me, not foreign. I had made them mine through discovery, adaptation, courage. I whispered softly, almost to myself. I didn't choose this change. But I choose who I am now. I am me. I am real. I am enough. For the first time, the panic, the fear, the uncertainty, they were gone. Replaced with clarity, empowerment, and an undeniable thrill of living authentically. I had survived the chaos, embraced the unknown, and emerged stronger, bolder, and unapologetically myself. The journey wasn't easy, and it wasn't fair. But it was mine. And as I stepped out into the night, the city lights reflecting softly in my eyes, I realized something profound. Change, even when forced, can lead to self-discovery, courage, and empowerment beyond what you ever imagined. And for the first time since it all began, I smiled freely, because this was me, entirely, completely, and wonderfully.